Hey, everybody, it's Kelly,
And I'm Beth.
and welcome to Everything Under the Sun. Well, we've got some exciting things coming up for the show, don't we?
We do.
Yeah,
We got some controversial things to talk about.
we
So
do. We do. Before we get to that, though, did want to let you know that if you are listening to the show, but you haven't subscribed on YouTube, or if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, be sure to follow along.
mhm.
Hit the notification button on YouTube so you'll get alerted when we drop a new episode. And so we appreciate all of our new followers and listeners. Welcome. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you engaging with us, leaving comments, and all of that. It's really encouraging. So we want to thank you for that. And by the time this episode airs, we're going to be talking to JB Hickson next
Yeah.
week. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We've got some exciting topics on the docket for him and can't wait for that conversation.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
And then we also later in March, we've got Lee Brainerd on the calendar. So we're really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah.
Some just godly men that are so knowledgeable.
Theologians.
Yes. And so it's just going to be such a treat. So
Yes.
we're really thrilled about that. And then Lauren from Uncertain Times, we're working on scheduling with her, but hopefully sometime in April, we'll be talking with her. So
That'll be great.
we've got some great things happening.
And if you haven't checked out our last episode, we talked about vaccines and vaccine ingredients and some studies that have come out about vaccine injuries and the dangers and so forth. So if you're sitting on the fence and you don't really know a lot, check that out. You might find it helpful. So
yeah, I thought it was ironic. We posted this on our Instagram that the day we dropped that episode was the day that research came out that linked aluminum with autism. And we talk a little bit about aluminum in the vaccines and how you can detox from that. And so that was just really ironic. But I'm glad that there's more data coming out so that people can make an informed decision.
Right.
I think we kind of knew that these things were not good, but we really just didn't have enough information. And so there are some things coming out. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to read a Bible verse this morning from Isaiah 25:1, and this was the verse of the day on my Bible app. But and I told Kelly this, I'm studying the book of Isaiah right now, so I just thought it was really appropriate. And I'm parking out there for a really long time.
Yeah, well, Isaiah,
really.
You can probably park out there for years.
And you really could. But it's Isaiah 25:1, and it says, "O Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will praise your name, for you have done wonderful things, plans formed of old, faithful and sure." And so that just reminds us as we sometimes get into difficult subject matter about our world and about the culture, just to have reminders that God does have a plan, and the good plan is coming to fruition. And so
that's a great reminder.
It's just an encourager.
Yeah, we have to hang on to those verses, especially the world just continues to get darker. It feels like daily.
Yeah.
If we hold true to those or hold fast to those truths when those days are dark, it'll get us through for sure. So thank you for sharing that.
It always does.
Yes. Well, we've got some things to talk about in regards to what's been going on around the world. I think we've got some things from the financial end. We're also going to touch a little bit on the Epstein files. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that people aren't talking about related to the Epstein files, as well as just some things in regards to maybe some updates on the Board of Peace and and all of that. So
the Tucker Mike Huckabee interview.
Oh, if you want to start there,
let's start there. That was a mess all the way around.
I agree.
And look, I love Mike Huckabee. I really believe he's a Christian, and he's always been a really good. I probably voted for him in a primary, like whenever. Who was he running against? Like back in the day.
Remember. At
any rate,
I do remember
maybe like after Bush or something. And I love his daughter. She was a press secretary,
she
White
was
House.
an excellent press
Yes,
secretary.
excellent. They're really smart, godly people. And I'll tell you what I was disappointed about in there. Tucker's going to be Tucker. Tucker will be throwing some things under the radar that are not true and hoping that his guest really doesn't know what's going on. And oftentimes they know. And he gets away with stuff until the next day fact checkers call him out, and then he'll be like, okay, whatever.
And the majority missed the fact that he had to go back and retract something he said, probably.
Right. And but I feel like as a Christian, we have the Bible. We have that is all the ammunition you really need to address things. And just the constant arguing about Israel's right to exist, who the Jewish people really are, it really could have been put to bed
immediately
had Mr. Huckabee had all of the facts, the biblical facts.
That's right.
And there's many of them. It's not just Numbers 4 that gives the border of the land, but there's many other things that go in there. And he knew this was coming up. And I just felt like you saw your buddy Ted Cruz get completely annihilated.
It was sad.
And people got to quit using the "I'll bless those who bless me" and "I'll curse those."
That's not the only verse about Israel.
Yeah, it's not. There's we don't even have to go there. Who the Jews really are, that is getting really out of hand. And the Jews are the Jews. They're the people who are inhabiting Israel. It doesn't matter that they came out of Europe after World War II, after the Holocaust. They were coming back from a almost 2,000-year diaspora where they were spread out everywhere, but those people are still Jews. A lot of them actually didn't marry outside of their faith or their tribe. A lot of them, they can trace them back to tribes that are in the land.
Even secular Jews are very, very big on marrying another Jewish person.
Right.
They're not really deviating.
Yeah. I mean, there's some intermarriage that happen, but it didn't water down the gene pool that much. There's been studies by universities where they have actually, wanted to figure out what the demographics were. And a lot, we've heard for years, like, Ashkenazi Jews are not really Jews, or Sephardic, but no, they can trace their DNA back to the ancient land of Israel. Like, they are real Jews. And so all of this is like, really, you want to say you're not an anti-Semitic, but then you say everybody in Israel needs a DNA test, and then that kind of blows your argument out of the water.
Well, right. And I heard somebody the other day talking about his comment about that. And he's like, well, what do you want to do with that information? Put it in a database? Kind of like back to the Holocaust? Do you want to start tracking the real Jews? Is that what you want to start doing?
I mean, it's
not that that's what Tucker's intentions are, but someone's intentions could be something very nefarious with that. And I mean, it's really not up to us to decide. God is very clear in his word about his plan for the Jews and with Israel. And really and truthfully, it's none of our business.
And in the latter days.
That's right.
What that plan is, and that there is a plan.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I was disappointed with Mike Huckabee and his lack of defense for what the Bible says. It's like he just didn't even know the whole story. And as a pastor for many years with his own church, he should have known. Or if he didn't, he should have come prepared. I was very disappointed by that, because I'll say this too. I don't think Tucker Carlson would ever sit down with someone that he knew could really defend that, because he doesn't want to defend it.
Right.
And so people he chooses to sit down are either going to not be able to defend it, like a Ted Cruz, or they're going to be, what's the word? They're going to have a little bit of restrictions on how they are able to share it, like Mike Huckabee, because of his position there in Israel. And so, I was very disappointed, though, as a believer. I was just really disappointed in his response. I thought that he could have done better. I thought he could have shut some of that down. And then when he started making some progress, you would see that Tucker would totally deflect against and change the topic and make a sharp right, bring up things that were adjacently
and go down a lot of rabbit holes that
yes,
were not even,
part of the question.
like Benjamin Netanyahu's parents are not even Jews and they were from Poland. I mean, just stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Right.
And,
Right. I mean, it just, I feel like those questions could have been answered, like you said, quickly and very streamlined. And I was just really disappointed. But I think God's using people like, allowing Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Ian Carroll and all of those people to divide the church, really. It's dividing the country, it's dividing the world, but I think it's definitely dividing the church. And I think it's all by design because Israel, the Bible says Israel will have to be a cup of trembling
right.
in the end days, in the latter days. And we're heading in that direction quickly. Everything's converging. And so they got to get there. And he's
that she will be utterly, the nation will be utterly alone.
That's right.
And totally dependent on God.
That's right. And so I just think that those folks are playing a role in that. And so the church needs to be very discerning. They need to always, if they start questioning something that they think is to be true, or there's something in their spirit is not sitting well, go and study the word for yourself. Ask the Holy Spirit to reveal to you, because that division is toxic to the church. It's toxic to you as a believer, because then you're not going to understand what's coming.
Right.
Your eschatology is going to get a little wonky. So
well, and I think it goes back to, and we've talked about this before, but there is a new world order forming, and there is an upper echelon of people, if you want to call them the Illuminati, the cabal, whatever. There are Jewish people involved in that. There are also Gentile people involved in that, and they have been for possibly centuries. This has been going on. They have a stronghold on most of the European nations. Probably had a lot to do with the forming of our country because they were financing the war for us to get free from Great Britain. This stuff has been going on. We've had people make documentaries about the cabal, like the Red Pill documentaries, Jana Ossibard, who is now deceased. There's been people who were part of the Bilderberg banking system on there talking about the atrocities, the child sacrifice, just all of the evil things going on, the trafficking, the control of the banks, how they use humans to, make money and keep control, and how they create wars and, end wars and cause economies and countries to fall. They are orchestrating all of this stuff. There's only about 7,000 to 8,000 people involved in this at the top. And it's a combination of evil people.
That's right.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, we could say there's probably every country on earth is represented in that somehow.
Yes, absolutely. If you're a leader of a nation, in this day and age, you're playing the game.
Playing the game.
So it doesn't take away that there are, like you said, there is evil. There probably is evil. There is evil leadership, I think, in Israel.
Probably.
I think that,
and there's going to be some real evil leadership on the way.
There is.
Israel.
There is, absolutely is. I mean, there's going to be even more evil. And I think we just have to pray for the Israelis over there who are naive, who don't realize what's going on, or maybe some of them do know what's going on, and they hence are concerned about it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think that God would ever want us to condone evil behavior just because someone ethnicity happens to be Jewish.
Right.
That definitely is not, we don't go along with that as a believer in Christ.
Right.
But he is going to use those evildoers.
Yes, I mean,
Always.
all of them
Yeah, no one sat.
go through his, you know.
Mhm. No one sat back in the day and said Herod was doing a good thing. They
Mm-mm.
didn't. He was an evil,
Right,
evil leader, but God used him to fulfill. He also used Hitler to fulfill his plan, and so he will use the current administration as well.
right.
So I think people want to get caught up of the things of this world, like politics
Yeah.
and world leaders. And is someone's, ethnicity, all of those things are worldly. That is
Mhm.
not what we are supposed to be focused in on. We are
Right,
supposed to be focused in on what God's word says and trust Him. We are not the judge or the jury.
right.
We are to be prayerful and to share the gospel and know that His plan is good.
Yep,
So,
agreed.
mhm.
So that was our take on
Yeah,
that interview,
it's a hot
and
mess.
moving on. And
Hmm.
I wish, Ambassador Huckabee all the best. I hope he can get it together.
I hope so too. I was embarrassed. I want to say
Get it together.
I was embarrassed. I was really
Those
holding out
questions
hope.
might come to you at another time.
But
Be ready next time.
be prepared. Yeah, get in the word and start studying and let's not I mean this is a worldly thing and we're going to talk about Epstein and all that stuff, but for him to come in that interview and act like he knew nothing about the Epstein files and played dumb about what was happening and that someone sought sanctuary in that country, furious. I was
Yeah.
so mad. I was like, you are kidding me right now. um I couldn't believe it. I was
Well,
not happy.
and that brings us to, she and I wanted to have this conversation. And we don't want to go through all the Epstein
No.
files and talk about everything that's in there because there's a lot of really sick,
Mhm.
demented, disturbing stuff in there. And it goes back to the church again, don't want to look at this
Mhm.
stuff, think about it,
Acknowledge it.
acknowledge that it's happening. There's already talk shows going on. Bill Maher was, interviewing Warren Bobart
I didn't see that.
on there, and she's talking about, and he goes, well, they're not really, there's no proof they're really eating children. But we've watched documentaries again with these people we just discussed that were like in the red pill documentaries.
Yes,
They've
they're
been sacrificed. That's part of their system. It's a
part of their
satanic
religion.
system.
Yeah, they're how they get their
It is.
power.
It's a religion. They get their power from
Hmm.
Satan. They worship Satan and they sacrifice. Human sacrifice is a part of their religion
Hmm.
also,
Yep.
but it's done with
Yep.
kids.
Go
And
read Kathy O'Brien's book.
right.
It,
There's all kinds of
you'll learn
people
all
that will
kinds of
testify
things
to
from that.
this. And so all the things in those files, there might be some things in there that are embellished or made to make someone look like they're guilty when they really never went there or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
those are semantics.
there are factual, crazy, bizarre things that went on that island with elite people
Hmm.
who are child traffickers and pedophiles. And it's interesting that people want to sit there and try to downplay or say, well, that can't actually be true. When yesterday, um, and I don't know when the New York Times actually published it, but this was on X. And the New York Times said that pedophilia isn't actually a criminal act, it's a disorder.
It's disgusting.
And I said, here we go.
Yep.
There's lots of people that are connected to Epstein Island, and now
They want to normalize pedophilia, is what
they're
they're
doing an
doing.
investigation into his ranch in New Mexico,
Whose
because
ranch?
Epstein's.
Oh,
So that
I
was a
didn't know the
hub
ranch.
also that they
Hmm.
apparently haven't even delved into all of
Mm.
that. So it's just interesting. We're going to see either denial of things that have been revealed, or they're going to start trying to normalize or dismiss it. And this was another sick thing that was on um, Instagram the other day, and it was an actual reel by this girl that's in medical school that was explaining cannibalism and what it does to you and what the two disease, mad cow disease is one of the products of cannibalism. And then there was another disease, and she was explaining how people could be cannibals and not contract those two things.
Why do we need to know?
And because the younger generation, there's a younger generation of people who are completely spiritually soul dead. They don't even have a conscience any longer.
I would say they're demonically possessed.
Right. And they are talking about these things like, I'm going to explain what this is and what it does to you and how you could actually avoid these two conditions and how this might be normative for, like, no, cannibalism is evil. It's satanic. It's a sin.
Certainly unbiblical.
You don't do it. It's completely out there. Again, like with the New York Times headline, they're going to try to get in there and normalize something. And the church, we need to be screaming about these
immediately
things and saying
now.
No.
Not wait till it gets here.
Right.
Because it's been slowly trickling in, I'll be honest, because you think about all of those green cemeteries where they've got water runoff, where human remains are coming off into the water supply. They've also talked about how they have put human parts of people as flavorings and things like that. In fact,
aborted fetal cells.
They used aborted fetal cells, but they also talked about how they would use human remains as flavoring in certain products, energy drinks and whatnot. And so this has been a slow
Lord help us.
Process that people are unaware of. I mean, because and we've done countless podcasts about this, about the ingredient list on your foods. They can have 10 or 12 ingredients that aren't even listed on the label because it falls under natural flavors. Well, a human is not a natural flavor, but they think it is. And so this has been slowly trickling in. And I'll say another thing that is concerning to me, and I know California does this, and then we checked with someone that would have knowledge of this too in our state, but they are teaching children what it means to consent. And so in California, it's part of their state standards in education. And they're teaching elementary school kids what it means to consent so that when this happens, they have an understanding of consent, and then therefore they knew what they were agreeing to. So the child is not being molested or attacked or whatever. They're a willing party, and they are doing that in our state here in Georgia in some of the blue counties. Like Fulton and DeKalb and some of those within our state here. And so y'all need to, we as parents and we as Christians, doesn't matter if we have kids in the school system or not, need to know what is happening in our own communities, in our own states, and what these people that we are supposedly electing, I don't think we're electing anybody anymore, but supposedly electing, are agreeing to. Because that is what is going to allow these children to be abused. And it's going to become normal, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, New York Times.
I mean, they're normalizing. It's disgusting. And people.
What a rag.
Right.
You're a rag. Yeah. No journalists in New York. Sorry.
It's disgusting. Well, New York is on its way down the tubes anyway. I mean, with that new mayor up there. I mean, terrible.
We're going to do a whole talk about that one soon, about the Islamic infiltration of America.
Yeah.
That's a real thing that's happening.
It is happening. And they want to assume, I think we have 4 to 6 Islamic elected leaders in Georgia. We have one that's running for governor. A lot of people don't know that.
Yep.
But she's going to be kind of a dark horse, I think, in this election. And so people need to be very aware of who's on the ticket.
We do.
Lots going on.
Yeah, that's a deep subject.
Yeah,
that has some biblical underpinnings to it.
Very much so.
Judgment and whatnot.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything else about the Epstein?
He's just kind of in everything. And like,
I was gonna.
Just the ties are to the, of course, the sex trafficking, the child molestation, all the big business people he's connected to, the medical community.
Right. Well,
that he's been involved with, giving donations for years. People didn't even know. I mean, it's just all
the Rothschilds, is it David?
Rothschild.
Not Rothschild. David Rockefeller, actually, is who I meant to say. Them too.
Yeah,
But
them too.
David Rockefeller actually appointed Epstein to the Trilateral Commission in the early 90s as a 32-year-old. And so you would think, like, why would this 32-year-old be appointed to the Trilateral Commission in such a big position where he's around all these elites and these globalists and doing, globalist policy things and such. And so he was actually hired in as a conduit, as a person who would be going around and bridging these relationships from an financial, political, academic, and multinational corporations. And like the he was basically like the influencer. He was going in and connecting people and bringing people together for nefarious reasons, not for business reasons. It looked on the outset as a business, like he's wheeling and dealing, but it was for much deeper type things. And so,
Didn't he wind up deceased?
who?
David Rockefeller.
I don't know. I don't know the story there. But
Yeah.
so he basically, Epstein trafficked in secrets, influence, strategic investments tied to two great pretexts with global control, which is climate and public health. And so the pandemic fear mongering by the UN and the climate change hysteria from the WHO allows them to justify this global governance and new taxation schemes. And this is the way to build the one world order. I find it interesting, and we'll talk a little bit briefly about the Board of Peace and whatnot. But right now, the Board of Peace is basically choking out the UN. And so all of these countries that have joined the Board of Peace are not paying their dues to the UN. And so the UN is getting real nervous about the funding not coming into them. And that's exactly why Donald Trump created the Board of Peace was, I think, too, to build up Gaza and get this alignment going, but it was to choke out the UN. And that's exactly what's happening. But back to the WHO. We supposedly separated from the WHO, last May?
Yeah, supposedly.
Supposedly.
We heard.
Right. But just this week, it was reported that the U.S. will participate in a WHO meeting at the end of the month to determine the composition of upcoming influenza vaccines. So have we really separated from them? Why are we engaging with the WHO about flu vaccines and what's in them? Y'all put a pin in that for next flu season. Tony Evers, also the outgoing governor of Wisconsin, just sold out his state to the WHO. They will join the WHO Global Response Network, which essentially shares all of your health information into the World Health Organization. So all of your health data, all of your biometrics, everything's going right into their database in Wisconsin. So when I went on there to try to figure out who all else is participating, the Googles of the world didn't want to let me know, but we finally worked our way around that. And actually, California, which is no surprise, and New York, which is no surprise, are also states in addition to Wisconsin who are part of that global response network. And so we need to, from a state perspective, know what our governors, who will be, a lot of them will be going out this summer, or this fall, actually, primaries are this summer, and changing hands, and what are they going to be doing as they exit out? And so I did not know that you could join the WHO as a state, but apparently you can. And so, how's that going to look in a pandemic? Because they got another one in their back pocket coming up. That all these different states are going to start participating and doing things that the WHO and other states are not going to be required to do those things because they're not part. And so, what's that going to do to continue to fracture our country? Is that going to create some kind of civil war? I mean, I don't even know. Like, I just think that is all so very interesting that we could have a split country on something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds like what they want.
Yeah.
Is to
for sure
break everybody up and divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I just thought that was very interesting. And then just kind of on the same vein with the Epstein files, We really haven't seen a lot of fallout for the Epstein files. We did see the former Norwegian Prime Minister, Thorbjørn Jagland, I think is how you say his name. He attempted to unalive himself shortly after being charged with corruption in connection to the Epstein files. That was yesterday. And then we saw Prince Andrew's arrest. We've really seen no fallout in the United States.
Right.
And we're not going to, y'all. We are not going to see any arrests. We might see some low hanging fruit out of that, but we're not going to see what is deserved from this because, one, as we talked about, some of the victims have been eaten, so they're gone. Some other ones have or do have no appetite to, no pun intended, to testify at all. They don't want to, they want it to be back behind them. They're probably scared for their life. And so you don't have victims that are willing to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
You also don't have a lot of evidence
Right.
either. You also, the person that they would be going after is supposedly dead. And so they're not going to bring them allegedly.
Dead.
I don't, who knows?
Is Ghislaine in Canada? Did you
Well,
see
she
those
pled,
pictures?
so she pled the fifth on some things and she's gotten off. Like she's basically, she's going to be a free agent before long.
Well, it looks like she's already been free spotted in Canada, and it looks exactly like her.
I wouldn't be surprised. She probably has never been in jail. Let's just be
Yeah,
honest about it. I
yeah,
mean,
I
none of
don't
these
think she
people
has either.
were. And so
They were working at the top of the heap.
yeah,
So,
no, there was too many. There's too many. There's just too much going on there. I mean, they're not being treated like an everyday citizen in this situation. And one of the things to me that doing some research, and we'll link these articles where we got this information. Alex Newman did a great piece um, talking about Epstein, and we talked about how terrible the trafficking was throughout the Epstein files. But one of the main reasons for that trafficking was for transhumanism and eugenics. And Jeffrey Epstein was, or could be still, a eugenicist. He has terrible things to say about Africans. He believes certain people are better than other people, certain genes are better than others. He was communicating with experts in DNA, discussing the creation of designer babies. That's throughout the Epstein files. And then, interestingly enough, the Arizona State University is who he was in discussions with for most of the academia world. And you would think Arizona State, I mean, I used to work with Arizona State for some things when I was in corporate. I didn't think anything of them. Like they were just a little state college. But their president, Michael Crow, he is actually the chairman of NQTEL and has been associated with this organization for over 20 years, actually. And this is literally the investment arm of the U.S. government, of the Intelligence Committee for our government. And so he was knee deep in with Jeffrey Epstein and the fund and benefit from some of the most Orwellian and frightening research imaginable. That he would work with Jeffrey Epstein on. And they talked about genetic engineering of human beings, merging humans and machines, was at the forefront of all the funding and research going on there. And so basically, Epstein and his connections wanted to own this ability to evolve into gods. That's their religion, is the transhumanism. And they really think that some of them are going to evolve into gods. And so
Arizona, we could do a whole show on Arizona, y'all.
And we probably should.
The Vatican has their observatory there. There's a lot of
secret military bases.
And then there's also a lot of, this gets into the whole, we can talk about this with JB, the whole Skinwalker, the supernatural
Is
world
Skinwalker Ranch out there? Is that Nevada?
Well, I think it's Nevada, but there's a lot of that type stuff going on in Arizona as well, where you have the supernatural realm coming through and
maybe that's where Nancy Guthrie is.
People being involved with trying to, fiddle around with that.
Yeah.
And
There's
It's a lot of crazy going on.
things going out there in Arizona. And so,
I know that sounds a little tinfoil hat,
but it's really
but
not.
it's not. Yeah,
They want you to think that it's tinfoil hat so that you blow it off. But that kind of stuff is, I mean, that is the spiritual realm breaking through
right.
into our realm. And so, and that's going to continue to happen more and more as we get closer to the rapture and to the tribulation.
You go back to Ephesians 6.
That's right.
I mean, we're in a very supernatural battle.
We
It's
are.
a spiritual battle against powers, dominions, dark
Mhm.
forces, authorities in the air. That is what's going on with all of
Yes,
this.
and actually, let me put a plug in for this movie, Nefarious. It's a Steve DC produced movie. It is an excellent movie. We watched it as a family last week on spiritual warfare, demonic possession, and it will give you a clear biblical picture of what that actually looks like in real life. And so I strongly encourage all of you, if you have not watched it, to go watch it. If you have watched it and you want to drop us a comment and your thoughts on it, we'd love for you to do that, because I think that every Christian, everybody, I think, and should watch it, but I think certainly every Christian should watch it, because the church isn't talking about real spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And we are so unprepared for what that really looks like. Everybody thinks, Satan is a joke almost, and blow it off. I've never seen. We are so removed from what that actually looks like in the church. But anyway, one of the things too, back to Epstein, he engaged in conversations about investing $1 million into cloning humans and creating designer babies. This is in the files. This is in black and white. There's no argument about that. They are definitely playing God. You've all know Harari's latest book about how some people will evolve into gods and that we will be better than the actual God, is what he says in his book. Because God creates organic life. He's like, but we will actually create synthetic life. And that's what they're doing with these mRNA shots. That's what they're doing with some of these brain chips that they're trialing and whatnot. They want to merge human with machine, and they only want to do a select few. They think that this is reserved for people like them, and the rest of us, and Yuval Noah Harari's own words, are stupid animals, is what he refers to us as human beings. And so another interesting data point was that Martin Novak was the professor at Harvard. He created the program in evolutionary dynamics, and he received over $9 million from Epstein. He had actually emailed Epstein, and he's the one who asked, did you torture her? So what does that even mean, that this Novak would email Epstein and ask if he tortured? Who is this? Who is her, and what happened to her? Something terrible, I can assure you. And so this is, of course, satanic to the core. This is just horrific, demonic, and satanic. And this all connects back to human trafficking. It goes back to Genesis chapter 3, the ancient lie that's very alluring to people, that they can be God. And just kind of what we talked about with the trafficking, and the church is asleep. And we have got to start, as the church, talking about this.
Well, and I wanted to connect to what you were saying. Sam Altman of OpenAI just said that training human children uses more energy than AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I saw that. They've already reached it now, haven't they? That they don't have to have the training.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was responding to concerns over artificial intelligence's growing environmental footprint. You know, you've heard us talk about all the data centers and all the havoc that's going to cost and create. And he was comparing it to the lifetime energy and food a human consumes before reaching useful intelligence. So they're creating a way that, yes, it's going to have some pitfalls, but it'll wind up being much more productive and better than, a human developing into an intelligent person that contributes to society or not. That's where they're valuing life that isn't actually life.
Right.
It's artificial intelligence.
Right.
And they're going to create synthetic humans. And then they're devaluing any life that isn't in their purview of an upper echelon, like where you would have the super intelligent person created from merging a human with whatever, but that is all garbage.
But all of this fits together, though, because here they are devaluing life. People are going to start buying into that. They're normalizing pedophilia and cannibalism. And so where does that leave people? They're going to be eating each other because they don't value each other, and getting rid of them because they want to depopulate.
New York just legalized euthanasia.
That's right.
We have about, I need to look it up, it's about 17 states now are legalizing
We're going to be like Canada.
Canada is now trying to get children to be able to consent to their own euthanasia. Sick children.
That's terrible. And you know what they're hinting at? A pediatric pandemic. They've already started it. They are hinting at the pediatric pandemic, because one, that will get parents fear mongering and get them totally tied into a vaccine or some kind of other whatever, thing
to shoot into your child.
And that's right. And then, or just trying to depopulate, and then going back to this whole euthanasia thing. All of this, y'all, is tying in together. Every bit of it goes hand in hand.
We talked about the vagus nerve before being your like parasympathetic. This is going to sound a little out there, but this is coming off of him. So in some of the files, Jeffrey Epstein was obsessed with the vagus nerve and how to control that.
Interesting.
And using, different vaccines or nanotechnology he said if we could get into human beings' vagus nerve, then we can basically make these people do whatever we want them to do. Like they'll be uploaded to a system and then we will control every move they make. And so he was really, I guess, putting money into that research as well. I mean,
millions
these people are sickos.
Yeah.
But there's companies and universities and medical people who are on board with it, board with figuring it out.
Well, I mean, part of it is they've got them addicted to whatever strange thing that they like to do. And so that's part of the issue with the trafficking and whatnot. And then they blackmailed these people because they videoed them doing whatever weirdo stuff, or they just have control. They're greedy and they're power hungry and they've made them promises. All of this stuff is just so intertwined that we can't even begin to lay it all out.
Right.
And it's been like that. I mean, if you've been following, like she talked about the red pill documentaries, if you've been reading about the cabal for years or read Kathy O'Brien's book, you already knew all this stuff. None of this is really a surprise per se. But I think just seeing it out in the open about how deeply it's intertwined, that's why going back to scripture, and she read in Isaiah today, that is it. That's our only hope in this whole entire world is Jesus Christ.
Right. He's our protection.
Yeah.
He's, but let me ask you a question. So do they have, because we did the vaccine episode last week, and so some of this stuff is vaccine related, y'all. But do they have a vaccine day at school? Because I saw some parents discussing it and saying, keep your child home on days that they would be vaccinating. So is there, y'all let us know in the comments or email, DM us, whatever, and let us know if that is a real thing. Are they vaccinating kids at school? Is that
is
been going on? Because if so, I would say get your kids out of there.
But think about this, back to the consent that they're teaching children. They're teaching them what it means to consent. So now maybe parents don't even have to sign a consent form for their child because their child, in air quotes, knows what it means to consent. Now, my kids go to private school. They don't do any of that right there. But that is so interesting. We'll have to phone a friend on that. and find out what's going on around the state of Georgia, at least. If
Right.
we know we have a lot of listeners in other states around the country. So if you know of anything in your state or your
Right.
area,
If that's
drop it in the
allowed,
comments.
where they have a vaccination day at school and your kid is allowed to get vaccinated there. Yeah, we want to know,
What are
because
we doing?
that's,
That's why.
well, what are they doing?
Well,
That's trickling down, and now
right.
and then people are going to be like, oh, there was another video that I saw where they were interviewing moms that were, and they were saying, would you allow your child to be vaccinated without your consent? Like, if you found out about it later, would you be upset? And some of them were actually saying no.
Oh my goodness.
And then I was like,
what are we doing?
We've lost it.
We have.
We've completely lost it.
We really have. There's sometimes no words. Sometimes I'm just speechless, and that would be one of them. But again, I think that goes back to kind of the love for others is growing cold. I mean, you see parents who are not connecting with their children. The ball field is raising them. I mean, that's just a prime example of, like, if your kid's in government school 8 to 10 hours a day, they go to practice, you're gone to the ball field on the weekend, you're not
on
connecting.
Video games in their spare time.
Right. You're at a restaurant eating out and you're on a phone. I mean, who's raising these children? Nobody. That's why a lot of them are acting
sorry, I didn't print out a whole bunch of stuff today, and so I'm using my phone.
Oh no,
so
you're
I
gonna.
don't want y'all to
Well,
be
I'm
all
old
like,
school.
Beth won't get off her phone, but
I'm old school.
I'm trying to
here.
give y'all some good information. It's all.
Yes, no, I'm old school, and I type mine out. It's how I try to remember it. I had one other thing. Do you want to go?
No, okay. You're good.
Real quick, just wanted to share this. This is something I came across as well. Alex Newman had a guest on his show. It's really, like, if you're not following Alex Newman, he has a great Substack.
Yeah,
if you're not on Substack, get on Substack.
Super smart. Him and Whitney Webb.
Yes, Whitney Webb is excellent. This is just something that I did not know about. Maybe some of y'all were aware of this. I did not know. But basically, in a recent article by Alex Newman, he states that an allegiance of big business and big government have the mechanisms in place now to seize virtually all of your financial investments overnight if a serious enough economic crisis were to hit. While this scheme is visible, he says, few know about it and most are unprepared. And so wanted to kind of touch on this just briefly. I don't know a lot about it, but basically power banking institutions and their allies in government are positioned to steal trillions of dollars from Americans' retirement and investment accounts. It involves an institution created by and for many years run by former CIA operative and Rockefeller minion. And all they need to institute their plan is a next big crash. And so as we see, even like on mainstream media, we're seeing, of course, if you're following, the prophecy world as well, everybody's kind of hinting at a big crash coming. I personally think that big crash is going to happen after the rapture. That's just my opinion. I have nothing to base that on. The only reason why I say that, and I want to talk to Lee Brainerd, he and I kind of still in the same vein with that, but is because Satan wants us all distracted and happy, and we get that from our wallets, sadly. Yeah. And I think that, and we've heard pastors countless times say that when the economy is rocky, everybody's back in church. There could be a little revival almost, and we know that there's not going to be a revival until the tribulation. And so I just don't see us having some major economic crash where they're going to seize all of that prior to the rapture. That's my opinion. Yeah. But did want to say that Justin Haskins, he's the vice president of Heartland Institute. He's written a book about this. Basically, it's called The Great Taking, and it's coming at us like a freight train, they say. Security investments like stock, bonds, etc., would be impacted. There was a paperwork crisis back in the 1960s is how we got here. And basically their solution was to take away everyone's property rights over their stocks and bonds. And it pulls all the assets together. Wall Street wanted to do things with derivatives, future contracts, and that type of thing. And those at that time were not very common. And so the way to get around that, basically, so they didn't have to go to all these different entities and ask permission to do them, was that they got all 50 states to change their law code back in the 1960s. And basically, it's a DTC model that's originated from this, and the law favors big financial institutions. This law has been amended several times over these decades, but it continues to, of course, get more and more favorable to these financial institutions. And they will be saved in lieu of the individual people. And it will be couched as like, hey, we can't have all these banks and these financial institutions go into destitute. Nobody's going to have anything at all. So we've got to seize your money out of your stocks and your bonds and your investment accounts in an Armageddon, apocalyptic situation.
Yeah, we have to have it.
And so that's what they're going to do. And so he had made some suggestions on how you can protect yourself. One is not all. I mean, and I'm not a financial planner by any stretch of the imagination. He was just saying what he has done, and that is basically had some of his wealth in property ownership, as well as some precious metals. I still think that they can seize all of that. They're going to raise taxes on your property. They're not going to let you be able to barter gold and silver. Let's just be honest. Right. So I don't know, maybe you would have a longer period of time if you had some more land investments in precious metals. I don't know the answer to that. Nobody does, to be honest. You have to be prayerful and do what's best for your family. So no advice here for sure. Just some things to point out and to be thinking about. Lawmakers over the years have tried to get this changed, but there has been absolutely no progress because these interest lobbyists come out and they shut it down. So there's no
and the cabal is shutting it down.
That's right. They're not going to change this.
They're the ones who are going to seize everything.
That's right.
And control it and have you just get a little doled out, for survival or not, depending on how they feel.
It depends on what's going on.
Whitney Webb talks about this too, and how this is going to get everybody hedged into the digital ID, central bank digital currency, and everything will be on that. And then now that will queue up for the mark of the beast.
Yeah. And I could see before the rapture us having a little bump in the road financially to get us onto digital. I could see where this might come into play in a light type situation. Certainly after the rapture during the tribulation, like this would be full on in instituted. But I just found that's been interesting. I had no idea that law was on the books, and
I didn't either. But does it shock us really?
No, it doesn't, but it's just scary. All these decades have been going on. Everybody's investing and they're playing the Wall Street game, and they don't even own any of their stuff. I mean, it's really frightening if you allow it to be. But back to what Beth said in Isaiah, and back to the God.
The Lord sustains us, not man.
That's right.
Not the system of the world. It's the Lord.
That's right. So, but just something to investigate. Maybe talk to your financial planner. But just remember this: your financial planner is paid commission based on his assets his or her assets under management. And so, the more money you have invested in your investment account in stocks and bonds, they're making more money. So they have a little bit of a maybe not a your best interest 100% always. Right. And so you have to do your own research and know what you want to do based on your financial situation. So just wanted to bring that up. That was something interesting article. And I'll link the article. There was a quick interview he did with Justin Haskins from Heartland Institute as well. So
do you want to go to that?
Yeah, tariffs.
Because that was in the address last night.
Was it? So I didn't watch that. I want you to tell me what they said.
Well, the wicked witches of the Supreme Court, including Amy Coney Barrett, messed up his tariff plan.
They sure did. He probably was really mad about that.
Well, he's already looking for a way to get around it.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
So what he's done is he has immediately after they voted his tariffs down, he went in and signed an executive order and instituted a 10% at the time global tariff. And then he's now raised it to 15% global tariff. And so that's how he's worked around it for now. There's about 1,500 companies that have filed lawsuits in the Court of International Trade to reclaim these billions of dollars in tariffs that they've been had to pay. Leading companies include FedEx, Costco, and Kohl's. It exceeds $170 billion in tariffs. Of course, they say it's going to be messy. This is going to be a multi-year lawsuit. This is something that's probably never going to be resolved, at least not in any future time. But did he say anything else interesting about?
I mean, he just said that most of the countries want to stay with the current agreement, whether the Supreme Court okayed it or not, because if they don't, he'll do another one.
It'll be
higher. And they said, no, we'll stick with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't like it when I try to order something internationally. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about it.
He was really drawing the line in the sand with them last night. So they weren't happy and he wasn't happy. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to ask you this question in a second. I want to make this comment really quick. I don't know. I'm sure he inherited a disaster from the last administration.
Disaster.
I think our company might as well be our country.
Well, he's trying to run it like a company.
He is. That's why I said that. Thank you.
United States of America, Inc.
That's right. And so I think that he's trying to get us back, out of the red, which is like digging I don't even know, we're in an endless hole. And so I do think that he wants us to be financially secure, and we want to still stay on top and be let me ask you this. So this kind of segues into the question as far as like the cabal. Do you think that there are two different cabals kind of with the same agenda, but they are the ones who want to win and be the power house?
I think that's possible.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'm not either. Yeah.
But it could be possible because we see so much friction, and we do see two different factions that have, one thinks they have some morality, but they really don't. They're both
terrible.
But you see they're trying to arrive at the same premise, New World Order, but they want this agenda and this group wants this agenda. So I think it's just possibly there's two factions that are going to duke it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe. I'd like to ask JB when he's on the show about that. He's got several books that address that, and I've always thought that too. And then sometimes I think, no, they're all in the same playing field, and they're all got the same goal, and they're just actors essentially in the world stage. I mean, and so I don't really know. So I'd like to get his take on that for sure. But anyway, that was all I had on my little agenda today.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, we were just really just discussing some of the things again, like taxpayer funded mosques are doubling as polling stations. This is in Texas. So Texas is getting eaten up by the Islamic, and I think CARE, again, the Council on American Islamic Relations is behind a lot of these.
Yes, I think they're doing that 61,000 acre Muslim shopping area here in Atlanta. Well, it's in Kennesaw. Mm-hmm.
The 15-minute city is going
15 minutes is going to Dawsonville. That's right. Yeah.
So go in either direction.
Which way do you want to go? I think I'm going to go. I don't even know which way anymore.
Mexico blew up earlier.
Oh, yeah, we hadn't even talked about that.
That's kind of going on. That although they say the airports are open again, and people
talk about that really quick, because the news media and the news stories we saw was like things were burning down. People didn't have food. They couldn't go here. They were scared for their lives. But I have a connection of someone who actually is there. And the stories that they were reporting out, it was a little scary and unnerving, but it was nothing. Yeah, but it was nothing like they were reporting out on social media.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that is so interesting.
Yeah, they like to make things.
Yes, they really tried to make that seem, I mean, not that it's not a big deal, because I think
Right.
it is.
And the cartels and the government have been fighting and then doing deals together and fighting and it's just
right.
Mexico's been a mess for a
And it
while,
will
but
continue to be a mess until somebody comes in and straightens that out. I also think that too, and this is interesting, a little bit about what you talked about. I think we talked about this before we hit record about the social credit system and digital currency and all that. It almost seems like this administration wants to clean things up morally, like do away with the drugs, do away with the cartel. Let's release the Epstein files. Let's do all of these things to make it seem like we're cleaning up people. You talked about
not
what Whitney
really.
Webb said about the thing on your phone that will shock you if you lie.
Yeah.
Talk about that briefly.
Well, that was Carrie Midday.
Oh, okay.
Is that how you say the name? Anyway, I'll send it to you. But yeah, so she was in a meeting. This was like what, 10, 12 years ago? And well, it was 2015. I'm terrible at math. I don't know.
That was 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
I'm not good at math either.
Round up 12. But they were talking about kind of all this thing, the stuff we were talking about, the nanotechnology being given to people and being inside of them, connecting to their phone, connecting to 5G, 6G, and how that would benefit the people collectively, like how it would. And so
share that example about
so they were saying there's two women, they're supposed to meet for dinner, okay, and one of them doesn't show up, and so her friend calls her and says, hey, I'm waiting at the restaurant for you, and she goes, well, I'm at the gym, I'll be there, give me like 20 minutes. And actually she's lying, she's not at the gym, she's at a bar with other people and has blown off her friend. And so the phone will actually pop her. It'll give you a buzz
like a
or
shock.
a shock. And because you lied and it knew you were lying, it knows because of your location, and all of her biometrics are now in the phone and because
right,
of
we're on the real ID.
Because now we're on the the digital ID. This is what it is. This is what it's going to do. And so every time she lies, she gets a shock because they said, we're going to make people be better people. We're going to, be able to modify behavior. I guess they could do that to people who are abusing drugs or drinking, or if you think you're going to get in your car, which they've had stuff to put on the car and then that never really worked. But so then if she continues to do things that are not part of the group collective, then they will take money from her bank account.
Her social credit score will drop, kind of like in China.
And it will be on media like she's a bad person. She's not allowed to go to the grocery store, or she's limited to when she can go, and she has to pay a different price because they're punishing her. It got into all of these variables. And so she said she was part of this meeting like 11, 12 years ago. And here we are seeing this. And she thought the whole thing was really like the sick dystopian. It was pre-pandemic.
Right. So it was a little foreign at the time.
There were some famous people there. And we'll link the episode where she's on. It was on Michael Jaco's show. And y'all can go watch it. It was very interesting talk.
And they even said Atlanta could be a hub for this type of trial.
Well, the meeting was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And there was some very upper people there. And
some very connected.
She said there was like 1,500 people in a locked meeting. Their phones were locked.
Their phones were shut down in the meeting. Yeah, they couldn't.
You couldn't leave once the meeting started. It was some kind of little conference. There were some famous doctors there speaking, and they're all on board. They're all on board with it. And
working in healthcare, I can tell you 100% they are.
And she was a doctor, and really during the pandemic was calling out all the wrong that was happening and trying to treat her patients with the right things, and knew that the vaccine and all the jab, all that was wrong. And um, when she was in the meeting, somebody said, "What do you do?" And she says, "Well, I'm a doctor." And they said, "Well, you're not going to be needed soon because what they're talking about is going to fix everybody once and for all."
Isn't that interesting?
And she was just, like amazed. Anyways, amazing interview.
Yeah, we'll link that, because I'll tell you this: working in healthcare, I worked for a very large healthcare system here in Atlanta, and I worked with all different levels of management, but had would sit in meetings and things with upper executive leadership, and I noticed a change in management style about the time that you just talked about when that meeting occurred, and it was we were always very much patient centric prior to that. And it was always about the patient. The patient was, we advocated for the patient. And then about 2016 or so, all of a sudden, we weren't really advocating for the patient any longer. And it became more about us as far as like the healthcare system and the patient.
Start thinning those patients out because they're taxing the system. They're taxing the collective, the perfect utopian collective that we're working towards.
But that leadership style changed, and it just continued to get more and more cold, very cold.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had 2020 happen, and it couldn't get more frigid after that. But it was just interesting. I'm just now kind of tying that together a little bit, and I'm sure that we were represented, no doubt about it, at that meeting. Yeah, there's just no doubt about it. And so that's very interesting.
Well, 1,500 of the top. Yeah.
Yeah, we would have been.
There's somebody there.
So, all very interesting, y'all. And there's not a lot we can do about this, but pray and just, pray for the Lord's protection over ourselves and our family. But it's just something.
Have knowledge so that you can, again, we always are about protecting our families and for our families to know what's going on, and, don't go to this place, don't do business here, don't, that it's just a matter also too of us being Christians, and like, we want the gospel to go forth because time is short.
Yes.
Not because we have 500 more years and everybody keep living their best life and going to Disneyland every week and, redoing your house over and over again, or buying new outfits every week, or everything's about a vacation and we're all just fat and happy. Like, no, time is of the essence. You see how quickly all of these things are taking shape. And so every week we just want to impress. Yes, people need to repent and put their trust in Christ.
That's right.
That is it. That's the main game right now.
And
that's what we got to do.
We're not caring for one another. I mean, it is the church, and I use it as a big C.
Yeah, the big C
is chilly. I mean, it can be a cold place, and we are not doing the things that we used to do, and we're not forging those relationships and cultivating those relationships because, like you said, we're so distracted by all the things of the world. So when these things start happening that we've just been talking about today, what does that look like if you haven't stewarded those relationships? No,
they don't know. They're like, yeah,
they're
at a loss, or they just want to shut down, and like, I don't want to think about that there's, child trafficking going on and organ trafficking going on.
That's all part of the Epstein files,
where they harvest people's organs in third world countries. This is all real. And we, I think we used to hear about those stories back in the 90s, and, we thought they were like urban legends or whatever, but no, this really goes on. And, our world, we need to pray. We need to help. We do need to have missionaries in other countries that are pouring into the population, helping training up pastors, planting churches, because time is running out.
It really is.
And we want people to not be left here.
That's right. And we need to be in our own country. We need to be in our own communities too, in addition to being overseas, pouring into our community. Our pastor went through some stats just last week on our own community, and they were sad. They were so sad of the unchurched people that are living within 10 or 20 miles of our church. Um, we have work to do in our backyard.
Right.
And you have work to do in your own home.
Right.
As well. I mean, you have to
Starts in the
continue.
home.
That's right. And continue and know where your priorities are. God gave us priorities, women in Titus 2, men too, in Titus 2. And those are our priorities, period. And then all the other extras. I mean, he doesn't want us, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we just follow what he says.
Right.
We just follow what he says. So anyway, it's just a lot to take in. But I think if we stop all some of that extra, we'll be able to align our priorities according to his word.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And check us out. There's the upcoming episode with JB. Don't forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's coming up next week.
Yeah.
So, Lord willing. All right, y'all. Well, thank you all for listening
to Everything Under the Sun.